Mr. President, up here! I voted for you! Wait a minute. That guy on the grassy knoll's got a gun. He's gonna shoot the president. Holy smokes, I've got to do something. All right, Lee. Time to become an American hero.
Darkmyths.org and Neopolis Media Group proudly present to you the Lone Gunman Podcast, featuring your host, Rob Clark, where research comes to shine and myths come to die. Stay tuned. Be right there.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too. We shall send to the moon 240,000 miles away from the control station in Houston a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall, the length of this football field, made of new metal alloys, some of which have not yet been invented, capable of standing heat and stresses several times more than have ever been experienced, fitted together with a precision better than the finest watch, carrying all the equipment needed for propulsion, guidance, control, communications, food, and survival on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth, re-entering the atmosphere at speeds of over 25,000 miles per hour, causing heat about half that of the temperature of the sun, almost as hot as it is here today, and do all this, and do all this, and do it right, and do it first, before this decade is out. Then we must be bold.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is episode number 132 of the Lone Gunman Podcast, and I'm your host, Rob Clark, with you here today on this special anniversary/Thanksgiving show. That's right, folks. Last year I did a special called Going Ham on Turkey Day, and I unleashed a little bit some frustrations that I was having at the time, and this year is going to be no different. Although not as much ranting, and I promise I will touch on some actual research as well going on here. Lots of stuff to cover today, and I wanted to start, of course, with the anniversary of JFK's death. This is the 53rd year, people. The 53rd year. Are we any closer? My answer is no. Some people might say yes. My answer is no. To the entire truth. But we must not give up hope. And if you listen to that speech, his JFK, we're going to the moon speech. Man, I mean, he has some big, lofty goals. And like he said, just 35 years prior, they were just crossing the Atlantic for the first time. Okay? So to go from flying over the Atlantic Ocean just 35 years earlier to wanting to get a rocket ship to the moon and back safely within 7 years is a huge, huge goal to try and meet. But we supposedly did it. Now, I, like a lot of other people, have some reservations as to whether or not it actually happened like people were shown on television. I don't know. I guess I'm a conspiracy theorist at heart when it comes to these things. There's lots of indications that we did not go and we could not go. But I guess that's for somebody in another line of podcasting to really get it and thresh out that conspiracy theory. But I have looked into it, and I'm not convinced we went. Yeah, I'm not convinced we went at all. Sorry about that. I'm trying to turn my notifications off. That was a loud dinger there. So, yeah, I'm not convinced we went to the moon. But damn if it didn't look to the rest of the world like we did. And if anybody else knew about it, like the Russians, they probably had their suspicions that we didn't go. But you know what? They didn't say anything. They just let us do our thing. Which is fine, It's always amazed me, that within, a very short time after the creation of NASA and the launching of satellites into space, putting a man in orbit, and going to the moon, within a relatively short amount of time, we're talking maybe a 10 or 15 year stretch here. And it's been, 40 plus years since we've attempted anything greater than going into orbit. And I've even seen things out there that say that, we can't even do that. So, there's all these indications that, footage from the International Space Station and spacewalks have been faked and this and that. And once again, it's not my place to say yes or no. It's just something to look into, and there is arguments for it. NASA themselves have admitted when it comes to interstellar travel that there's a lot of problems, that there's no way in hell that they could have even anticipated or gotten through, almost 50 years ago. So, but, it doesn't really matter in the big scheme of things, I guess. Because, this far out, if they would have kept on the path and it was a true, if we did actually go to the moon and back and they actually kept on the path of exploring our solar system and, really applying the best and the brightest minds and technology and the industries that we have available here in the United States, that there's no reason we couldn't have been to, Venus or Mars or Jupiter or anything by now, or even to the farthest reaches of our solar system and back. Look, you guys, if you've looked at anything, you know that there's really far advanced propulsion systems out there. A lot of them we're not privy to. Self-contained, energy producing units that can, can produce and sustain, creating energy on its own. The problem is the time that it takes to get there to these places. That's why in all these futuristic movies, you see them going into like some kind of a stasis, and then having the system wake them up, when they get to their destination. But, it takes a special breed of people to, volunteer for such missions. But, this is what unites a country, for common goals, is to do something great as a nation. And here lately, we haven't had very much greatness to unite as a nation and be proud of, what our country is doing. The closest thing that I can probably compare it to in my lifetime is, the sense of, and probably false sense of, uh, patriotism that the nation, kind of united behind after the attacks of 9/11. Um, and once again, if you take a closer look at the events of 9/11, you might just see a conspiracy there. And things might have not happened as we're told. So, once again, here we go, here we go, here we go. Now, JFK made a lot of great speeches in his short 3 years as president. I mean, the man had a way of definitely engaging uh, and coming across for sure. With that Boston accent and his enthusiasm that relayed greatly, through his voice and his intellectual vigor and his seeming honest thoughts behind these speeches. It's almost like he wrote them himself. Now, of course, we know he didn't, or not all of them anyway. But damn if he didn't deliver them like he owned them. When you think back on some of the great speeches, like the American University Peace speech, the Secret Society speech. It, it's just he was a great president. He was young, had a beautiful family, and had the entire world ahead of him. And he was gunned down 53 years ago, this week. It's just so sad when you think about it, really. It's but that's why we're here. That's why we continue to look into the case. And what's part of the reason? Everybody loves a good murder mystery, of course. Everybody loves true crime. But there's a part of it that really bothers you because of what a great president he was, and could have been even better than that. Lyndon Johnson got a lot of credit for continuing JFK's policies and his things that he wanted to get done in his presidency, like the Civil Rights Act. I can definitely see, if JFK would have lived and been and gotten that passed, and he would have definitely went down as the one of the greatest presidents ever. Not to mention what the other things he could have done. Such as avoided Vietnam. But the powers that be that kind of moved the military-industrial complex that he was warned about by Eisenhower are, at times, he faced a very, very strong opposition to what he was trying to do. Because, I've often mentioned on this show that you can't make money off of peace. It seems like there always has to be a war, and if there's not a war, then there has to be some kind of credible threat hanging over our heads. Now, the one exception that I could possibly even, relate to you is, I guess maybe when Bill Clinton was in office in the 90s. And Bush had started the Operation Desert Storm, there during his thing. We had a little bit of peace in the 80s, but there was a lot of scandals, like the Iran Contra scandal. Afghanistan, uh, Nicaragua, all kinds of stuff. Um, but and while Reagan was still in office and Jimmy Carter, the Cold War was still going on. It wasn't until the late '80s, early '90s that um, you know the Berlin Wall fell, and then when, after Gorbachev took over, we got a new Russia. The Cold War's over. Everybody's happy. We're shaking hands and moving on. So the '90s kind of ushered in our first era of actual peace with no credible threat. There was instances, in Somalia and in Iraq and places like that at the beginning of the '90s, but for the most part, it was kind of event free. Now, of course, that also ushered in the new era of neocons and the start of terrorism. If you remember, before 9/11, the World Trade Centers were bombed. Before that, and Oklahoma City was bombed before that. So you kind of had an air of terrorism, but you know, if I think if Oklahoma City had been blamed on a Muslim instead of some random white guy, um, things might have been a lot different as far as people caring about it. Now, people cared about it, sure, but you have a white domestic terrorist. What are you going to do about it? He rented a truck, filled it full of shit, and blew it up, and blew up half of a building. Or so the official story goes. Once again, if you look into the conspiracy theories surrounding the events of the Oklahoma City bombing, you might come away with a different story. I'm just trying to keep it easy to understand and follow here, people. Don't think that I'm not aware of just about every conspiracy theory out there. I'm well aware. But they could have blamed that bombing on anybody. They could have strapped a Muslim in the front seat of that thing and blew it up with him in it, and then we'd have had a problem. Um, and it's been demonstrated that the FBI had infiltrated a supposed terrorist cell, but they were actually the ones who were egging this guy on to do what he was doing and blow up the World Trade Center. Now, of course, that didn't go as planned. Thank God back then, but nonetheless, who knows what to believe anymore? It's just, as Bob Dylan said, the times they are changing, people, and now here we are, 53 years after JFK was gunned down in the street in Dallas, and after one of the most strenuous political presidential races and election that I can remember, as far as not having a real clear cut, credible candidate on either side that the people could put their trust in. This is what it's come to. And whose fault is it for allowing it to get this far? For allowing the neocons to be in power for this long, for allowing the Clinton-Bush dynasty as long as it's been, Clinton's, Bush, Clinton, Reagan, it's our fault. Now, sure, people can say that the elections have been rigged and everything's been rigged for a very, very long time, and I would not argue with you one bit. Hell, there's even allegations that JFK wouldn't have won the election if his daddy hadn't paid off some of the mafia folks to make sure he was elected in Illinois. But, people were a bit skeptical of this young this young buck back then in his Catholic ways and his Boston Yankee accent. And this is part of the reason that he went to Dallas and toured the South a lot, was to garner support. This is part of the reason that he selected Lyndon Johnson as his running mate, because he needed some support from the South. And if they saw, hey, we got a big Texan standing behind this Yankee, then, hey, he's got my vote. You know, they say JFK won, the election after debating Richard Nixon on television. It was one of the first televised presidential debates. And just the creepy way, Nixon was on there all sweaty and looking uncomfortable and nervous, and JFK coming across like a Hollywood actor, well spoken and thoughts together, and he won it right there, pretty much. Of course, there was some staunch, old school folks. Most of them, because JFK barely won the election, just like Donald Trump. So now we have a president-elect who's never held a political office in his life. Great businessman by all accounts, but does he have what it takes to run a country? I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, because I believe that if Hillary Clinton would have been elected president, that first of all, I think she's a criminal. As far as what went on with Gaddafi and in Benghazi and in Syria, and these emails with Podesta and all this weird, child sex trafficking stuff. No, thank you. And she's a flip-flopper. She says whatever the people want to say. You can see her on YouTube from 10 years ago saying, "Oh, I'm so against abortion," or "I'm for abortion. I'm pro-life." She just flip-flops to whatever is the hot thing, and I don't want anybody like that in office. Just a people pleaser and a handshaker and whatever. I mean, I know they're puppets anyway, but some puppets have a little more power than others. And the whole Clinton crime family goes way back, way back to Mena, Arkansas, and the CIA and the drug running and gun running, and no thanks. No, thank you. You've had your time. You've had your offices. See you later. Sorry. Have a nice life. Ride off into the sunset, Hillary. And now, Donald has said that he's not going to go after Hillary Clinton criminally. He's not going to push it. Now, this is not saying that the FBI couldn't do their own thing, but he's not going to publicly call for, Hillary to be prosecuted criminally for all this stuff, despite what he said when he was running for president. He nominated, I think, the governor from South Carolina, who was a woman, who said that she hopes that Donald Trump does not get elected president. Back in February, she said this. She said that he supports the KKK and all this other crazy stuff. He appoints her to a position in his cabinet, and now she's singing a different tune. She says, "Oh, I did vote for Trump, and I'm so glad he got elected." Well, I guess you are. That's why all politicians are full of donkey shit. All of them. Not a one of them that has gotten that far up the ladder is anything less than crooked. They're bought and paid for. They are puppets to the highest order. They're political whores who will do anything to advance and make their star a little brighter. And you can quote me on that shit. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. I didn't want to go down. I just wanted to basically say that, this event 53 years ago changed the course of America forever. And, this time of year, of course, it holds special meaning to me because of the passion that I have for looking into this case and for, what I feel about the man on a more personal level. And also, it's always around Thanksgiving time. And I think, JFK didn't get to have Thanksgiving that year with his family. And his family didn't get to have Thanksgiving with their husband, their father, their brother, their son, their uncle. And that, saddens me. It does, because I just don't think that one day out of the year is enough to say, hey, you over there on this day, once a year, you need to be thankful for something. And the whole premise of it is horse shit anyway. The Pilgrims come over and broke bread with the Indians and they all sat down and had dinner. Well, I'm sure the real story goes, the Pilgrims moved in, stole all their shit, slaughtered all the Indians, then they had dinner. That's probably a little bit more accurate, but I digress. We should all strive to be thankful on a daily basis for what we have in this life. Even if you don't have a pot to piss in, you can be thankful, that you got a pair of shoes on your feet. You can be thankful, that you ate this morning. You can be thankful that that person over there just gave you $1, so you hopefully put it together with a few more dollars that you get so that you can get something to eat. And that's if you have nothing. Now, most of us and most people listening to the show have things. Okay? You have jobs, you have a family, you have, wives and kids and this, that, and the other. And we take for granted a lot of stuff. And I'm guilty of it too, on a daily basis. We should all be thankful, that we're healthy, that we have healthy children, that we have a job to provide a life for our families and et cetera, et cetera. I'm thankful on a daily basis that I'm afforded the opportunity to do something that I love. And trust me, it ain't my day job. But I don't hate my day job. My day job affords me a lot of time to think. I do a lot of driving. And, I also like my day job because I'm not stuck in a cubicle. I don't have a boss breathing down my neck on a daily basis. And I have a lot of time to think, which is something in this area of study that I think is beneficial. I don't have a lot of white noise in my brain, when it comes to life on a daily basis. And I'm thankful for that. I'm also thankful for all the fans and supporters and loyal listeners of this show. Because without you, there would not be a Lone Gunman podcast. Trust me, if nobody listened to this, I wouldn't do it. But here we are, 2.5 years later from when I started the show. I was stoked to see that, hey, oh my God, 10 people listen to my show. And it slowly increased. Oh my God, 50 people listen to my show this week. That's crazy. And that eventually got to 100 people listen to my show this week. That is insane. And trust me, I can keep going. Now it's thousands of people listen to my show this week. And that, to me, is just freaking amazing. It is just amazing, amazing, amazing. That tells me, hey, Rob, you're doing something right. All of your hard work has paid off. I've heard from people that that, had no interest whatsoever in the Kennedy assassination until they heard my show. They've heard other JFK shows that are boring and stuffy and convoluted and, that are just hour long, book commercials. And they dig that I tell it like it is. Because I pull no punches here on this show. I got no reason to. This show is supported by you, the listener. Not any corporate media, not any corporate sponsors. In case you hadn't noticed, I have no commercials except for when I'm trying to sell something myself. Sure, I try to supplement the income of this show. I spend a lot of time and hours in preparation and talking to guests, putting in a lot of work to this show. And it'd be nice to get something back. Not that I'm doing it just for that reason, but, there are expenses. There is web domains you got to pay for. There is bandwidth you got to pay for. Hosting sites you got to pay for. All kinds of stuff. Thankfully, a lot of people have helped me along the way on the video side of things, on the SEO side of things, on the audio side of things. I can't just name everybody that I'm thankful for that supports this show, but you know who you are, and I count each and every one of you as personal friends of mine, because that's the kind of thing we have here. Most people that support the show, I interact with on almost a daily basis. Just shooting the shit about whatever. Talking about what's going on in the research community or what's going on in the news, just stuff like that. It's great to have people you can talk to about this kind of thing, and I encourage it. I'm easy to find. I'm not a hard guy to track down, and I'll always answer you. Maybe not right away, but I'll get there. I got 2 other jobs. I got kids and this, that, and the other, but I make time. I make time for this and for the people that I interact with and that are important to me. I make time. And because I'm thankful for each and every one of you. Those folks who support the show and who like the show and share the show and interact with the show. Man, it's validation for all these years of hard work, and that's awesome. I did a show last week, an anniversary show. It was supposed to be a roundtable show with me and a few other guests, but they didn't show up. So it was just your boy for 2 hours, well, 3 hours, maybe 3.5, on my friend Jaffe Ryder's show, the Pirate Radio Network. I was aboard the ship, and we had a great conversation. And he's asked some very, very good questions. We dispelled a lot of myths, from folks who don't really know more than just a cursory glance at things, or stuff they might glean along the way, or people they may have heard of. That if you don't look further into them, like Judith Baker or Beverly Oliver, or people like this, you might have a false sense of what you think you might know about the case. And I put the link up for that show on my personal page. So please check it out. I think it was a great show. And I thank Jaffe for inviting me on the show, for sure. And, look, I've had some great shows. Randy Benson, man, who I had on last week, has blown up here recently. I heard Dallas was an incredible success. His film People loved it. People love Randy, and I think it's awesome that somebody that put that much hard work in this, and it's finally paying off. And I couldn't be happier for my friend Randy Benson. He's a great dude and a great ally to have in the research community for sure. Of course things can get petty. You know, John Barber, who did the film, the Garrison tapes, and then the Garrison tapes Part 2. Great guy by all accounts. I've never had him on the show personally, but he has been on Doug's show and Chuck's show, and I think he's a pioneer for what he did for reality television and for the interviews that he did with Garrison and all that. And I got nothing against the man. He deserves every bit of success that he has. But I've said it before on this show that the people you associate with are a direct reflection of how you conduct your business. Okay? And let me tell you something. Back when John Barber first announced that he was trying to get together enough money to do the Garrison tapes Part 2, which wasn't all that long ago, maybe around the first of the year. He did a GoFundMe page. He was trying to raise an insane amount of money, something like $50,000 or maybe even more than that. All I know is like, holy crap, there's no way he'll ever get there. God bless him for trying, but I don't think he'll ever get there. But apparently he got there and was able to whip it out and get this thing out here pretty relatively quickly. He was shown in Dallas at the Texas Theater this year as well as Randy. Now, his producer, in quotes, Myra Bronstein, is in several JFK related groups there on Facebook that I'm a part of, and also was a friend at one time. And I guess it was a couple months ago that that Myra posted something about George Bush and all this stuff being in Dealey Plaza and behind the assassination and all this and that and the other. And it wasn't too much on the heels of the show I just did with Doug called Beating the Bushies, which we did last summer, in which I think we pretty much debunked a lot of the George Bush myths, that surround the case, like his boat names. People, oh no, he named the one Barbara J and blah, 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 blah. No, he didn't. No, he wasn't in Dealey Plaza. It was actually a different guy that was photographed there. He was actually in Tyler, Texas, as we have, a picture from Steve Rowe. We have Barbara Bush's autobiography that states exactly where they were that day, despite George Bush seemingly not able to remember himself. And we all know that's part of the reason we keep women around is because they remember important things that men often forget. So, and the whole Operation Zapata thing, we debunked all that. That's a region of Cuba. Also named after a Cuban or a Mexican revolutionary who ended up being killed by his own men. So despite all the innuendo surrounding the whole George Bush did it theory, there's just not a lot of concrete evidence to support it when you actually look a little harder. But it's a great story. So great, in fact, people like Russ Baker and John Hankey and all these other folks have made a living off of a cottage industry living off of saying that George Bush was behind the assassination. Richard Hook on Facebook, has George Bush in the Dow Tex building, running a hit team. He has George W. Bush in Bobby Socks and penny loafers running through Dealey Plaza. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, my point is that Myra had said something about this, and I very politely disagreed with her, and I proceeded to post my evidence of why that she was wrong. Well, she didn't take too kindly to that. And after I explained about the Barbara J and the boat name thing, and it actually wasn't even Bush's boat, and this is documentation. It's documented from newspaper articles of the time. This was her response. Oh, you're going to show me mainstream media newspapers as proof? Like they wouldn't lie. Come on. Mainstream media has no reason to lie about some guy named George Bush, who was an oil guy back at the time. There's been actually no documentation before 1974 that George Bush has ever worked for the Central Intelligence Agency. Ever. And people, you want to point to the J. Edgar Hoover memo? Well, let me break it down to you like this. How in the hell would J. Edgar Hoover know how would he know who was a CIA agent? How would he know that? It's not like the CIA sends over a list of employees to the FBI and says, this is all of our secret agents. George Bush was so clandestine he wasn't on the payroll. Nothing's ever come out that he was even an asset, like Clay Shaw and Des Moines Shield. Nothing. We have no record, at least from CIA internal memos. And you could say, well, he was director in 1974, and he might have, could have just wiped everything clean. But trust me, when you're talking about millions and millions of files and document pages, you cannot possibly ever get everything. You just can't. And I'm sure his tax records have been gone over by somebody somewhere. And look, the guy before 1974 was not employed by the CIA or an asset that we have documentation about. And until we do, it's just speculation and an assertion that you would hope to be true. Because he's a villain and he fits the villain mold very nicely. Like with Lyndon Baines Johnson, you're going to have to do better than that. I don't believe in fairy tales. I haven't believed in fairy tales since I was about 10 years old. Do these people think that Santa Claus, is real? Do they believe, the Easter Bunny comes every year? For you to be able to prove something, you have to have some kind of evidence. Okay? And anomalous photographs that have been debunked, forgetful presidents, and, photographs that have been misidentified are not proof of anything. But anyway, Myra didn't find, being hit with all this evidence, she didn't want to deal with it. So she blocked me and deleted the entire thread. But like I said, I saw this GoFundMe page for John Barber's movie back at the beginning of the year. And, when you look on the GoFundMe page, you can see who's donated and how much they've donated. Well, Myra Bronstein must have a pretty big pocketbook because she was donating a couple $100, every couple weeks or so. I can't go back and give you specifics, but she was throwing some money down. Now, John Barber, when last I checked on that GoFundMe page, was still a very long way away from his ultimate goal. Sorry, I just had a thought. Hey, I got Google. I can go up and look this stuff up real quick right away. So let's head over to the GoFundMe page for the Garrison Tapes Part 2. Now, just like I remembered, I was a little bit off though. John Barber was trying to raise $150,000 for this documentary. Okay. Now, why he needed $150,000 to edit footage that he already had and maybe narrate over a little bit, I don't know. But that's what he was asking for, $150,000. Now, he was just a little short of his goal. He only managed to raise $3,853 out of $150,000 in 12 months. Yet 61 people donated to him. And, oh, look, Gary Fannin. Big boy. Speaker at JudyCon, $275. And that was just 20 days ago. Oh, 3 months ago, Gary Fannin again, $200. Oh, here we go. Myra Bronstein, 3 months ago, $100. Myra Bronstein, 7 months ago, $100. Oh, look, Myra Bronstein, $100, 8 months ago. Oh, there's Gary Fannin again, $200, 9 months ago. Oh, there's Myra again, $100, 9 months ago. Oh, look, there's another $100 from Myra 9 months ago. Let's keep going. Marty Eichler. Oh, wow. Big spender, $10. Good job, Marty. He could have bought a whole hamburger with that, but he chose to donate it. Oh, look, there's another $200 from Gary Fannin 10 months ago. Myra Bronstein, $25, 10 months ago. So between Gary Fannin, who probably gave almost $800, and Myra Bronstein, who probably gave close to that as well, a good portion of their donations contributed to John Barber reaching, 5% of his goal. Yet, somehow the movie got made relatively quickly. Within a year of starting this GoFundMe campaign, it was in the theater, being shown. As with Myra Bronstein as producer in Dallas with John. So my guess would be that she picked up whatever was remainder of the tab that was left over to get the movie done, which, kudos for her. But, I don't like the cut of her jib. Somebody that just is incapable of having a conversation with somebody because they're producing real evidence as opposed to their nonsensical bullshit hearsay. And they don't want to have a conversation anymore and just want to block people because they don't want to hear the truth. And I got no time for you, Myra Bronstein. And like I said, John Barber, kudos for getting this movie out, and I got no problem with you, sir. But, you are known by your company. And, going to JudyCon 2016 and talking there and selling your DVDs there just to make a little bit of money, and cavorting with people like Myra Bronstein and Judy Baker. Uh, that's a couple notches down on my respect meter for you. I see what it's all about now. It's never been about getting the truth out there. It's been about making money. But anyway, I'll stop ranting about that and move on to something else. So the conferences, they had them this past weekend. Friend of the show, Carmine, presented at Lancer, and by all accounts was a resounding success. From what I've heard and from people who were there, say he did a great job. And we'll have Carmine on here in a couple weeks, and we can talk about it. I'm also going to have somebody on the show who was there as well, but not as a presenter, just as a guest. Who's also a researcher and just a guy that loves and is interested by the case, and he's actually been. I've had my eye on him for a couple years. He's been doing some independent research on his own, and there's some stuff that really hadn't been looked at too much before. And I can't wait to bring that to you. Hopefully next week. Hopefully I'm talking to him. Excuse me. At the end of the week here, and we'll get it out next week. So there's that to look forward to. But yeah, the conferences, and look, I'm not going to sit here and rehash everything because I don't know what all went on at Lancer because I wasn't there. And for me to sit here and tell you everything that disgusted me about JudyCon 2016, quite frankly, I don't have enough bandwidth on my show, just to make it through one episode to sit here and talk about it. And who wants to hear that anyway? What I will say is this: despite JudyCon being a total, gathering of shams and frauds and hucksters, they did manage to do something right, by God, and it's amazing. And it's not hard. It's really not hard. Both conferences, and I've heard from people that went to both of them and said they had a great time, whatever. The one thing they got right there, they streamed the entire conference live on YouTube. Now, when you're streaming live on YouTube, when you start a stream and you stop a stream, it automatically uploads a video of that stream to YouTube. So, if you want to go watch JudyCon 2016, you can go watch it for free on YouTube. It's not that hard to find. And I think it's very cool that they did this, despite their conference being sold out. I think that that's something that Lancer needs to really, really look into. Not everybody can make it to Dallas every year and spend thousands of dollars on the trip and the accommodations and the tickets and this, that, and the other. And for those folks that can't make it, it would be nice for those that are interested enough to care about what you're doing down there to make it available online for free to watch. Especially if you're having a resounding success down there and selling out your venue, which you did. That should be your meter. If you sell out Lancer for all 3 days, put that shit on YouTube for free. Just either record it or stream it. One of the two. if you don't sell out, then I can understand not wanting to put it out there for free. But if you're sold out and you've made your money and you're good to go, there's no reason whatsoever that you can't put that on YouTube for free for people who are interested enough to care about what you're doing down there to watch it. And it's something that Judy got right for hers. And yes, Ed Tatro, I saw your presentation. Well, your enigmatic speech about something. And I heard your little slight at podcasters that I'm sure was aimed in my general direction. And you, sir, may kiss my rosy red ass. You want to stand up there and talk all this crap and not hardly any of it substantiated. Okay? You want to tell me that Madeline Brown is credible because, well, something that she could have lied about, she chose not to. So that makes the other times that she spoke credible. That's not proof of anything. That's not proof of anything. You idiot. And I'll stand by it to this day. You did not debunk nothing about what other people have been saying about you. The LBJ theory is done, kaput, done. Mac Wallace was not on the 6th floor. Sayonara, see you later. Madeline Brown, not credible. She may have banged him, but as far as this party and what he said to her and whispered in her ear, it's all hearsay. And you can't prove it at all. Period. Dash. You can't prove none of it. Therefore, you can't stand up there and spout this from the highest rooftops. Sorry. You just can't. I mean, I don't know if he thought he was channeling Lenny Bruce at that conference or what. You know, oh, he's holding court up here. I'm holding court up here. I'm Ed Tatro. I'm Lenny Bruce. Well, let me say bullshit and let me say fuck so I can get a little bit of applause. Get the hell out of here with that shit. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. You're spicing up what you're saying you're spicing up how you're saying it because what you're saying is absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing credible. So you got to put on some kind of a stand-up comedian routine to spice it up and rile the people up with your Yankee accent. Sorry. Take that shit somewhere else. Write a book, bro. Okay? Put some footnotes in it with some actual evidence. Then we can talk. And address things that have been debunked like the Mac Wallace fingerprint. Hire your own expert. That's the chain of events. You know, Bartholomew, you can stand up there and badmouth Robert Garrett all day long. The thing is, okay, you hired an expert to look at the fingerprint. He concluded that it was Mac Wallace's print. He concluded that there was 34 points of match. Okay? Slam dunk, as Walt Brown said. It's a slam dunk. That's 20 years ago. Another researcher has hired another independent fingerprint analyst using the most up-to-date techniques and somebody that's actually certified in this shit to look at them again. And he says they're not Mac Wallace's. So, sorry. The FBI says they're not Mac Wallace's. And they have one of the best fingerprint analysis things in the world. So, sorry. If now the ball's in your court. If you want him to be back Wallace's fingerprints, you have to hire your own independent fingerprint analysis again to contradict Robert J. Garrett's. You can't have some dummy standing down in Dallas, Texas at a podium trashing him when he doesn't know his ass from a fingerprint analysis in a hole in the wall. All that, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. All that smack talk. No. If you want to refute Bob Garrett, go hire another expert with more qualifications than Bob Garrett and see what they say. But I know you're not going to do that because, oh my God, what if they say they are not Mac Wallace's? Then you're going to be eating your hats. Then what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Phil Nelson, Roger Stone, all them guys, you're going to pull your books off of Amazon because they're full of lies? I doubt it. You're going to stop speaking at conferences and selling your shit there? I doubt it. So Ed Chatro, when you're man enough, like I said in my email that you didn't answer because you're not man enough to answer somebody, but you can send Judy Baker an email about me, but you can't answer an email from me like a man. Sorry, got carried away again. There's just so much stuff going on right now in the research community. I mean, just ridiculousness everywhere you turn. Ridiculous everywhere you turn. Oh my God, it's like, it's everywhere. You got Roger Stone debating Gerald Posner. I mean, really? Like, what in the Sam hell has this come to? As a conspiracy theorist, I sure as hell don't want Roger Stone representing us or our side of things. No wonder Posner jumped at the chance to debate this fool. He's going to rip him to shreds. I mean, say what you want to about Posner, but at least he understands and knows most of the facts of the case. Now, maybe he doesn't tell you all of them, but he damn sure knows them. And he's going to tear Stone apart. He's going to tear him apart, and it's not even going to be pretty. Stone knows hit points. He knows hot topics. He knows how to say things without any proof. This guy supports Judy Baker and LBJ did it. This guy is not who we want leading the charge against lone nutters. I mean, this is ridiculous. Ridiculous. But that's where we are now. So, you know what? I guess we get what we deserve. Because, that's what we got. And I also wanted to point this out. That between both conferences and probably 50 speakers on a variety of topics, not one focused on the far right. Not one focused on anything concerning General Walker. Like I said, the extreme right wing, John Birch Society. None of it. Because look, I was pondering some stuff. Because like I told you, I got a lot of time to think. Okay. And I actually drove by the CIA headquarters today, as a matter of fact. I was actually listening to a podcast about Mary Pinchot Meyer. And as I turned my head, as I'm leaving D.C. and heading over the Chain Bridge, Well, by God, there's the crime scene. I'm looking at the towpath down by the C&O Canal where Mary Pinchot Meyer was found dead. I even tweeted the guys at True Crime Garage. I was like, that awkward moment when you're listening to True Crime Garage about a murder and then you happen to look out the window and see the crime scene. Kind of weird. But anyway, once you cross the bridge and you make it right there on 123, it takes you into Langley. And then, of course, eventually on down further, it takes you over to the interstates. But you got to go by Langley. And I was thinking, would the CIA, because look, would the CIA have had the balls to effectively pull off essentially a coup d'etat in America, just like the book? Would they have done that? We know what they've been accused of in the past. When it comes to foreign nations and foreign countries and, assassinating leaders or installing, their puppet regimes that are sympathetic to whatever they're doing. Would they ever even contemplate doing that here in this country to a leader like John Kennedy, who also happened to have a brother, Robert Kennedy, who was head of the Justice Department? He was the Attorney General. He had an office at Langley. Would they have the balls to pull this off? And why? Why? I mean, does it boil down to self-preservation? Or does it boil down to a rogue element within the CIA? Not necessarily the CIA as a whole. It's hard to say. I don't think the CIA as a whole, meaning from the top brass all the way down, would have done this. Even if it meant dissolution, of the CIA. Kennedy did say that he was going to smash the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the winds. But a lot of the problem with the CIA was Allen Dulles. A lot of the problem with the CIA were folks like Bill Harvey and David Atlee Phillips and whoever else you want to throw in there as being involved in a lot of these things going on overseas, where they're essentially conducting clandestine operations and on behalf of the United States government that are not officially sanctioned. It's like he says in his speech, guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. That's essentially what we were doing. Now, if the CIA had sanctioned the hit on John Kennedy, would they use their own to pull it off? Would they keep it in-house? Or would they essentially farm it out to a third party, essentially creating plausible deniability? And who would they have trusted to farm it out to? The mafia? Who could they trust to keep their mouth shut about who was sponsoring this hit? And people always like to say, well, yeah, the real assassins probably got killed shortly thereafter. Um, blah, 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 blah. But let me tell you something. The movies don't always portray it as such. But I can tell you, somebody capable of planning and executing a hit on the leader of the free world in broad daylight in the middle of the street with hundreds and thousands of witnesses and getting away undetected probably had a pretty good exit plan and probably already got his money and probably already had plans in place to disappear very quickly. At least if I was the assassin, I would have wanted my money up front. I would have told no one the plan, either beforehand or after. And good luck catching me, bro. Because I would have had disguises set up, maybe a lay low spot for a couple weeks before you even try to get out of town. Shit, maybe plastic surgery. Who knows? But you're not going to find me. And, a cold-blooded assassin is not going to be suckered into meeting somebody somewhere to get paid the rest of their money and da 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 da. That's amateur time. That's amateur time. For this to be pulled off, it would have been something where nobody was meeting face to face. Money was exchanged behind, closed doors, whatever, through money transfers or, whatever have you. Essentially, the sponsors and the assassin would actually never had to meet. But the sponsor would have never had assurance that it was going to actually be pulled off until it actually happened. And what recourse would they have had? They might have had one built into the agreement, some kind of recourse to recoup their money if the assassin, A, didn't pull it off, or B, got caught and started singing. He could say, well, look, them guys over there in Langley hired me to kill him. What do you want me to do? Say no to the government? Say no to $1 million? And just imagine for a second if it was proven relatively quickly that the CIA would have been behind it. Had somebody gotten caught with legitimate ties to the CIA, imagine the backlash, for 1 second, if you will, if an element of our own government was responsible for taking out our elected official, our highest elected official, our president. Imagine for a second if the CIA had been, if it became public knowledge that the CIA sanctioned the hit. Boy, oh boy, would the shit hit the fan. People would be getting offered up like lambs to the slaughter. People would have been demanding public hangings for treason. Could you imagine? The CIA would have been disbanded immediately. They wouldn't have been worried about getting scattered to the wind. They would have just been squashed immediately. There's no way the CIA could remain an entity after it was proved that they had some kind of tie to the assassination. Would they risk that to kill the president, to kill Kennedy? Would they have risked all that just to kill Kennedy? The answer is I don't think so. Because, you know, there's always deals to be made. And with Robert Kennedy, as close as he was to these Cuban exile groups and folks at the CIA, you know, being the Attorney General and knowing certain things, and being able to talk to his brother about things and advise him on what to do, you know, there's just no reason to kill Kennedy just in broad daylight in the middle of the street. You know, I mean, this is a guy who's got a wife and kids. He's the president. He was elected by the people. You can't just kill him to change that. You can't mess with democracy that way. That's who we elected as our president. And who in the hell is this organization to deny the people of this country what they wanted? Just because he didn't agree with their assassination plots? You know? What? Just shut that part of your thing down. Okay, you don't need to kill foreign leaders. All you need to do is sponsor the opposition to get the job done so you don't have to get your hands dirty. And of course, that's eventually what they started doing. You know, but there's no reason for the CIA to send in some super spy, you know, some secret agent assassin man to kill foreign leaders. There's no reason for it. You know, if he doesn't want to play ball, either you're shit out of luck or you're going to have to sponsor his opposition and make sure that he gets elected, or make sure that his side is well funded and well armed in order to take care of their own business. You know, you want to become leader? Okay, well, you're going to have to pull a coup over on this guy. You know, we'll give you money and guns and whatever you need to do it, but we're not going to do it for you. And when you get there, you better remember who got you there. You know, that's how things should have been done. And of course, that's how they're done now. So, anyway, I just wanted to point that out, you know, that this year, out of 50-some speakers, the far right, the credible threat. You know, I like to say a lot about credible threats when it comes to the life of President Kennedy. There were credible threats. You have Miltier on tape being a credible threat and having some pretty ominous knowledge about what was going to happen in Dallas. And possibly being on the street in Dallas to watch the show. You know, you have credible right-wing threats in California. You know, these guys in the John Birch Society out there were meetings. There was informants there. They informed on, you know, Dr. Stanley Drennan and all his guys about how they wanted to support General Walker and the Kennedy need to be removed because he was a credible threat, they perceived, to democracy. They thought that Kennedy was too soft on communism. They thought he was a pinko commie bastard and should not be in the White House. He shouldn't be meeting with Khrushchev and handshaking and not attacking Cuba, not attacking Russia for putting missiles in Cuba. Instead, he wanted to talk it out. He wanted a détente. He wanted to work things out without resorting to the ultimate violence that would have ensued. Yet this credible threat was not the subject of any of these presenters in Dallas, at least that I know about. Somebody at Lancer may have touched on it. I don't know. But, you had one of the most important books in a long time to come out last year, General Walker and the Murder of President Kennedy. You heard it a couple weeks ago on Doug's show about the Jack Martin film, or the John T. Martin film, where on one reel of film, a former enlisted man under General Walker filmed himself going to Dallas and taking footage of General Walker's house and the bullet hole that Oswald allegedly shot in there. And then it cuts to a scene in New Orleans of Oswald on the street handing out flyers and getting arrested. Now, what do you think are the odds of that? Okay. If you're visiting your former Commander-in-Chief, General Walker, that you respect greatly, if you're going to his house and talking to him and taking movies of the bullet hole in his wall and window, and the next image on your home footage in a neighboring state several hundred miles away, you just happen to start filming the very guy accused of shooting at General Walker. How ironic is that? That has to be one of the greatest coincidences in the entire history of the universe. I mean, just think about it for a second. How crazy that is. And like they said on Doug's show, that's not just a coincidence, people. It's not. Jack Ruby, when arrested, was afraid of one entity in Dallas. He begged Earl Warren to take him to D.C. And he named it the John Birch Society and General Edwin Walker. There's papers from General Edwin Walker stating that Jack Ruby is going to leave the hospital one way and one way only, and that's in a box. Before he starts talking. Because they knew he was dying, and if he's dying, he ain't got nothing to lose. So they shut him up. The credible threats is there. The credible threats are there. But yet here we are talking about and arguing about who is in the doorway, who shot Oswald in the basement. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Who changed this photo and this, that, and the other. I'm sorry. It just makes no sense to me. But I digress. And it is what it is. But, hopefully bigger and better things coming in the next year. We got lots of stuff to look forward to and lots of stuff to be thankful for. So once again, on this, the anniversary of John F. Kennedy's death and murder, and this Thanksgiving holiday. Please keep in your hearts and your minds the Kennedy family and everything that they've been through. And also, be thankful, people, for your family and let them know you love them and let them know you care every day. And don't take life for granted, people. It could be gone in an instant. So be thankful for what you have and enjoy it. Enjoy it to the fullest. And that is the best advice that I can give you. So, with that being said, and without further ado, this sumbitch is in the can, beamed up the satellite down directly to your ears, people. This is your boy. Peace.